afternoon, beloved. I'm Reverend Robin. I am one of the ministers here at Beacon Unitarian Universalist Congregation, where Carolyn Johnson was and is a beloved member. On behalf of Jim and Kathy and Kip, I want to thank you each for being here for this day of remembrance, as even in the midst of tears and mourning, we yet celebrate Carolyn's life. From Evanston, Illinois, where Carolyn was born on January 21st, 1940, to September 12th of this year when she died shortly after being diagnosed with cancer, Carolyn gave to us an extraordinary legacy across 85 years that will endure in those who knew her best. Witty and resilient, wise and creative, Carolyn understood her diagnosis as I experienced her throughout her life. She was clear about what was before her, the limited time that she had, and her desire to spend that time with family and close friends. When I met with her in the hospital as she was awaiting the exact kind of cancer and the extent, she used that characteristic resolve that I saw in her so many times before when she was crossing a difficult threshold or going through a hardship. Mostly in that moment, her concern was for Jim, her best friend, whose love endured across the decades from that first chance encounter on a college break in Myrtle Beach. It would be impossible to tell the story of Carolyn without the story of Jim, a love that endures to this day, even as Carolyn is no longer with us physically. Together they raised two children, Deborah and Kathy, rooted themselves in the Westfield community and here at Beacon beginning in 1974, over 50 years. They shared creative interests, times of great hardship and pain, most especially in the loss of their daughter, Deborah, and the joys of watching Kip and now great-grandchildren grow. Carolyn was creative and funny. Just ask her playwrights group who will be speaking. She was also straightforward and delivered it honestly. Just ask her grandson, Kip. She was thoughtful, tenacious, loving, attentive to detail, and over the years helped Jim learn how to match his clothing, I am told. Indeed, all of her legacy endures to this day. So we will remember together, beloved. So there will be moments of laughter and joy. So there will be beauty and brilliance in our gathering. So there will be the essence and the spirit of Carolyn. And in this remembering for a moment, perhaps we will call her into our midst. We indeed will celebrate, even as the tears flow, this extraordinary life. Thank you. Thank you for gathering.
And now if all of you would rise as you are able and sing hymn number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire.
And have the gift
choir. I'd like to invite Janet Roberts forward, member of Jim's long-term covenant group. We kindle the light of our chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism, and the courage to answer love's call. We do so in honor of Carolyn Johnson, who surely, again and again across 85 years, said yes to love. Love as a lived value, as commitment, and now as legacy. We kindle this memorial candle for her from the light of the chalice, acknowledging that to live in hearts that love is not to die, but to endure in memory and in future generations. I'd like to invite Carolyn's grandson, Kip, forward to say a few words.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kip Robeson. I am the oldest grandchild of Carolyn, or we call Nana. I'm the oldest son of her oldest daughter, Debbie. I came from Chicago this morning, and this is a really amazing turnout. So thank you guys all for being here to celebrate such an amazing woman that, as it was really hard for me to write this, because my mom should be doing this, but I know that Carolyn cared so much for other people, and having you guys all be here today was a lot more people than I thought, so this is really, really great. So I am unfortunately making a speech like this for the second time, and I do feel a lot of strength, though, from my mom today. And I think one of the things I've learned in 11 years is that what we really should be doing is just telling stories and remembering all the amazing opportunities that we had with her and that we have even, honestly, with each other, because those stories can live on for generations and generations of, sure, they make it exaggerated every now and then, but I hope to share some of those stories today. And I have to start with the best one, because there's a classic, I would say, Johnson family road trip story where Kathy and Pop and Carolyn and my mom were getting ready to go in the car on a huge, 8-10 hour road trip, and they packed the car, everything was all ready, and they all got in the car, they all had their drinks, and a couple hours in, Kathy or my mom needed something to drink, and Papa was driving, and Nana went to go open the cooler, and she goes, "Shit, these are all diets." And by that, I'm assuming that she packed the wrong drinks for the road trip with her, however old Kathy and my mom were. And I don't imagine that S-H-I-T word was in their vocabulary at school yet. But, I feel like we told that story in our family all the time to just try and remember that it could always be worse. You could always be on a long road trip, and your car could be full of diets. And I, always think back to, what her face looked like, because if you guys know the classic Carolyn, I'm sure that's what she did, exactly when she said that. I think, we all have different life experiences that shape who we are, but I've really come to realize that, all you can really ask for from others is, to feel loved. And I really felt that, Carolyn loved every single part of me anytime we got together, which made me feel so special. And I, grew up in Richmond, Virginia, and we would drive up 6-7 hour car ride, and she would always have these thoughtful gifts. I mean, like thoughtful, not like what you do now and go on Amazon and search and click and buy now and have it in 3 hours, right? It was these thoughtful gifts where she searched and searched and searched and really thought something that was meaningful to you. And I remember one time we came up and I had the room in their house on Clark Street, kind of right by the street, and every single time you got there was something on the bed. It was an album and then some small little gift. And these albums were these 8x11 blown up pictures that you would normally have of, the 4x6, 5x7, and she blew them up in these huge, 3-ring binder kind of material where every single time we get together, she would put the pictures from last time. And I remember one time we came up there, she said, Kip and Andrew, the machine broke it however I was doing this, and I couldn't get it to work. And I'm like, oh, Nana, it's okay. And she goes, no, I really feel like this is something special to you. And I feel like if anyone that knew Carolyn, and if you've read the book about the 5 love languages, her love language of giving was gift giving, right? And I feel like she really had these gifts feel something really special to her. And I'll always cherish those 8.5x11 photos that she would print out and put in our 3-ring binders, and it would be of us in Nantucket, or us going to the Yankees game, or whatever it was. There were all these opportunities that she could have to kind of blow up those memories. From what I've noticed about all of you kind of in this room, and my grandmother as a whole, is that she really kept her close family members really close, right? It wasn't about quantity for her. It was about quality. And I think those really close friends like you have here today are kind of really showing, kind of that connection that I'm sure all of you guys had together. And I feel very lucky and very blessed to have a very special connection with her as a, huge basketball fan, and we loved watching Duke basketball together. And as one of these kind of gift-giving love languages, she got me one of these publications called the Duke Times, and it was basically like a monthly newspaper that they would come to your house, and it would show you all that was happening with college sports at Duke at the time. And I remember anytime we got together, she would ask me, "Oh, so you see about this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I saw that in the paper." And then years and years would go by. She would keep the subscription going, and I'll never forget the last Final Four run that Duke had with Coach K's last season. It was, Nana and I were texting all the time about, what do you think they're going to do next, and how's Coach K going to go out? And I feel like I'm always really going to cherish that moment in time with her where we really kind of connected and bonded, over Duke basketball, because I was fortunate to play a little basketball after high school, and there was always a good Duke game you could always text with her about, and I feel really fortunate to have that with her. But again, the biggest takeaway from that Final Four run was that Duke unfortunately lost to the other blue team in North Carolina, and but what really amazed me was her attitude, right? Again, I'm sure you guys are all knowing this, but she would always say, all right, well, there's next time. Always there's next time. And I really felt that she realized that things in the past should stay in the past, and we shouldn't look too far into the future. I think we should really be grounded where we are and kind of have this present moment to say, we are really sad. This is really sad. But we also have to remember all these fun opportunities and memories and stories that, have us just kind of focus on what's going on right now. And, like I said at my mom's celebration years ago, I don't really believe that we've lost anyone. I really think they're all here in some way where they're going to send signs that for those that have impacted our lives, truly, right? And there are going to be signs of you seeing them and having an impact in your life, and, that they're never really gone. But, I hope this upcoming Duke basketball season, she'll show some signs that she's still watching and gives Duke another banner one of these days. But I really miss you, Nana, and but I have felt a lot of comfort knowing that her and my mom are hanging out now, and I thank you guys all for coming, and look forward to hearing some more stories later today. Thank you.
A lot of people. Um, I'm Carolyn's daughter, Kathy, and mine is much shorter. Everybody gathered here is sad about losing my mom. Everybody in here. All of these family and friends are sad about that. That's why we're here. That's a lot of people because she was such a loving person. She was so wonderful. That's why this room is full. But beyond the grief that we're all feeling every day, I would like to say we can remember to celebrate how lucky we are to have known her. How very, very lucky we all are to have known her. She was my mom. She was one of the most thoughtful people I have ever met. A very loving mom. I love you, Mom. You'll be in our hearts forever.
Good morning. Or is it afternoon? My name is Kathy Menendez. I'm a member of Beacon and a friend of Carolyn. Carolyn was smart. Can you hear me? No? No. Am I doing something wrong? Anticipation makes us, It's green, so I would have thought it was on. Okay, am I on now? No? How about now? Now? Okay. Should I just talk louder? No. Okay, this is as loud as I can talk. My name is Kathy Menendez. I'm a member of Beacon and a friend of Carolyn of many years. In short, Carolyn was smart, strong, and occasionally surprising. When I joined the church 40 years or so ago, I already knew Jim and Carolyn as very involved members. I knew Carolyn. Oh, thank goodness. I knew Carolyn as warm and kind, as polite and proper, as one of the pillars of the community. Then 20 years ago, I got invited to a play reading group of which she and Jim were already a member. And about 10 years ago, I got to be part of a lunch group with Carolyn. So I guess I've known her for a very long time. And in a more intimate way than you do as a member of Beacon. The first thing I would say is that she was smart and savvy. She was bright, she was educated, and I didn't know all those details that they read. I just could tell. She was artistic, And when we went to her house, you could see all the interesting books and the beautiful antiques and heirlooms. She was also a smart dresser. I always was impressed with how she could wear something that seemed so simple, yet classy, and somehow sophisticated. I was a bit envious. She was also strong. She had strong opinions. She had a strong will. And she had a fierce love of Jim and her daughters and her grandkids. Because all among the art in her house were the many, many pictures of her family. So just looking in her house, you could see so much about both Carolyn and Jim. She was also surprising. And you're going to hear about the best event that was surprising in the play reading group, but Helen got there first, so I'll have to leave it for her. But her breathy voice that could be vulnerable, or sexy, or strong, or frightening, that was surprising in her reading. The dinners that she contributed to, the main dishes, the salads, surprising salads. The favorite was a cake she brought one time from the baker. It wasn't her fault. That had some red gelatin topping. We didn't speak of it much, but it was pretty hilarious. I had the privilege to spend time with her during the last few weeks and days. I got to hold her hand and share memories and laughs. Carolyn was a special soul and a very good friend, and I will sorely miss her. Thank you.
We invite you to remain seated for our next hymn, which is 123, Spirit of Life, as the members of our choir come forward to lead us.
Stirrings of compassion, name is Mary Ann Dolling. My husband and I are longtime friends of Carolyn and Jim and members of Beacon. It's a privilege to share some of my memories with you. Ulf and I came to Beacon in the early 70s. In 74, we joined what was then known as an extended family, a true family consisting of small children and grandparents, the whole age range, who met monthly for potluck dinners, community, and fun. I remember camping and canoeing in the Pine Barrens and hiking in some of New Jersey's beautiful state parks. Carolyn and Jim were part of this wonderful group of people, and lasting and meaningful relationships began here. Carolyn and Jim's wonderful daughter, Debbie, babysat for Stefan and Klaus, our sons. We felt so lucky to have such a lovely young woman care for our boys. Carolyn and Jim, Ulf and I, and two other couples formed a movie group. Again, we met monthly for meals and a movie with a lively discussion of the movie to follow. That is, until we realized that we were too old and too tired to stay up so late. It was either dinner and discussion or a movie. That was enough. Thereafter, we viewed the movie at our own homes and later dined and discussed. Carolyn watched a lot of movies and amazingly seemed to remember them all. She could always recount interesting stories about the actors and actresses in their lives. When we met at Carolyn's home, she entertained us warmly and always had the most beautiful table, often with a centerpiece of blue hydrangeas, fresh or dried from her yard. I visited Carolyn in the hospital on the day a biopsy was done to discern if hers was a fast or slow-growing tumor. Considering the situation, she seemed upbeat, so grateful for the staff, and especially the doctor, who spent so much time with her explaining everything and answering every question. Carolyn said that she was accepting of her diagnosis. She said, "I'm 85 years old. That's a long life. I've had a good run." Carolyn was unique and courageous. I hold her in my heart and will miss her deeply.
Special moments. Occasions like this call for special moments. And what makes this moment really special? What do we always remember with a smile? Over 20 years ago, some folks in this congregation invited my husband, Chris, and me to join the play reading group that you heard about. At that time, Carolyn and Jim were already its most seasoned members. And let me give you an idea how it works. We try to meet once a month, rotating to each other's homes, and the hosts pick the play, they offer hors d'oeuvres and beverages, while the guests take turns preparing dinner courses. When my father-in-law heard about this, he began pressing us with lofty play suggestions. You know, Sophocles, Euripides, Shakespeare. But we're just amateurs doing cold reading, and our gatherings were more social than theatrical. We just wanted to have fun. Yet sometimes magic happens. Theater happens. It was our turn to pick the reading, and I hit upon Christopher Durang's For Whom the Southern Bells Toll, a one-act send-up of the Glass Menagerie. Now, part of the host's task is assigning roles, and by happy accident, I assigned Amanda the lead role to Carolyn. Originally, a man played the part, but I'm sure if Durang had heard Carolyn that night, heard her wry, effortless delivery of every line, he might have cast her on the spot. We never laughed harder. At our last last play reading, when we were reminiscing, it was the first thing that came up. When we meet people, we make assumptions, reduce them to generalities. So seeing Carolyn only at services and coffee hour, I thought of her as another smart, polite person. A description that could probably fit everybody in this room. But time adds delicious wrinkles to a photoshopped portrait, and it makes it interesting, singular. For instance, a couple of times, Carolyn told us how she used to have a real potty mouth. And she also told us that she liked to read The Inquirer. We learned that she had perfect pitch and a wide and deep appreciation and understanding of music. Yes, singularity is the thing, the particulars that make us who we are, the irreplaceable that dies with us. An occasion like this brings us back to them, back to moments like Carolyn's Amanda. The thing about it is its singularity. We all strive for special moments, yet on reflection, many of them come to us serendipitously. They're gifts. They come unbidden, unrepeatable. You had to be there. And the only thing that you can say is thank you.
Hi, I'm Bill Griffith. I've been a member here, I think, with my wife Nancy about, 35 years or something, I don't know. But it's been a long time, and for much of that, we were members of the play reading group thanks to Jim and Carolyn's invitation. And by the way, never follow a poet. So Helen has described Carolyn's role in our play reading group perfectly. No doubt her time at Duke University gave her a special insight into such characters as Amanda. But Carolyn brought other gifts to our meetings, especially her salads, which have already been mentioned. Crisp lettuce, dried cranberries, candied pecans, goat cheese. Oh, it was all there and all delicious. Carolyn and Jim preceded Nancy and me and the other members in reaching grandparenthood. She was intentional in how she kept up with her children and grandchildren. She embraced the role of the long-distance grandmother, which was very, very important to her. She was a great role model. As Carolyn's hidden disease began to sap her energy, she no longer felt able to participate in our readings, but she didn't complain. Jim chose to stay home with her, so we were twice bereft. I, for one, didn't understand what was going on and felt frustrated that our beloved play reading group was falling apart. And I confessed to blaming Carolyn. Well, this brings me to Carolyn's last and best gift to me, a lesson in compassion. Dr. Gabor Mate writes about the 5 levels of compassion. The first level, ordinary human compassion, is empathy for suffering. The next level is compassion of curiosity, not assuming that you already understand what someone else's situation is, but rather seeking to learn what is really going on with another person. I would add resisting negative assumptions about from incomplete information. As Carolyn's beloved husband Jim told me just last month, her diagnosis explains everything. So with the help of the medical community and memory of Carolyn guiding me, I will do better next time. Thank you for that, Carolyn.
Thank you, Bill and Helen and Kathy, Marianne, Kathy, and Kip. We want to extend an invitation to share a memory or a word about Carolyn to anyone who's gathered here today. We welcome you forward, and we would love to hear a memory you might have or some words you'd like to share with us. Please.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ken Robeson. I am a son-in-law to Jim and Carolyn. And even though I grew up here in Summit, this is only the second time I've ever been in the Unitarian Church. The first time was August 14th, 1982, when I married the love of my life, Debbie Johnson. The reason I wanted to step up here is because Carolyn was really the impetus between the two of us getting together, and I will forever be in her debt for doing that. Back, for some of you that have been here for a long time, will remember that Roots was once a men's haberdashery. I used to work there, and I was, after college, worked there to save money to take a trip to Europe. As everyone knows, Carolyn worked at the Maven Agency in Summit, and she would come by Roots and look and see if I was working that day, and then she would call Debbie and say, "Ken looks really great in this three-piece suit. You should go see him." And so she would show up at Roots, and I'd be at the counter, and she'd stand there and say, "Hi." I said, "Hi, can I help you?" "No." And I'd look at my watch and be like, lunchtime. I said, "Well, are you hungry? Would you like to go have lunch?" "Yes." So I owe a lot to Carolyn. But it wasn't just that part. It was Jim and Carolyn being so warm and embracing. And they have been such wonderful in-laws. And I know that Debbie and Carolyn are looking down on us right now, so happy that we're all getting together. And they're really going to be looking forward to hearing the stories that we're going to share with each other after this service.
Hi, I'm Janet Roberts, and I wasn't going to say anything, but I've just been sitting back there thinking about one thing about Carolyn that was just so beautiful. We would have Jim and Carolyn over for dinner, and we would have a lovely time, great conversation. It was like they were part of the family. And with like clockwork, within 3 days of that dinner, this beautiful envelope would arrive with this just perfect thank you note that we were all taught to write as children and like never do because, you know, Carolyn did it every single time. And the notes were thoughtful and her penmanship was beautiful. And they're just one of the things that I keep and cherish. And I just, it's just so encapsulates her. So I just wanted to toss that out there. And I bet you there are other people in this room who have those notes. Keep them and cherish them.
Carolyn was my sister. I had her for 83 years. She was the most wonderful sister. I admired her, respected her, looked up to her. She taught me so much and was such a loving sister, always, till the very end. I have wonderful memories, and it's wonderful to hear all of yours, which are very different from mine because I knew her from my birth on. She and I shared a wonderful childhood and stayed very close throughout. She was a wonderful sister,
a wonderful sister-in-law, a wonderful aunt to my children. My daughter is here. As she touched all of our lives so profoundly, and we all got to see what a loving, caring, giving, thoughtful person she was. But I get bragging rights. I knew her longer than anybody. I miss her every day. I'm sorry I can't still talk to her, but I do. And I'm so grateful to have had her as a sister. She was the best. So.
I'm Julia Curry Miller, belong to the Beacon community for about, 40 years now, 35 years. Anyway, so I've known Carolyn and Jim for quite a while, and Carolyn was in our lunch group, and I was in this play group that you've heard from, and I lived at Lantern Hill. So I want to talk a little bit about Jim and Carolyn's time at Lantern Hill, because quite a few of our Lantern Hill friends are here. Carolyn and Jim moved to Lantern Hill at just the right time enough for them to begin to participate in the breakfast club, which Jim went to regularly, and Carolyn sang. She shared her absolutely beautiful, pitch-perfect soprano voice. And the choir that Ruthie put together, the very first year I sang with her, we did an abridged version of You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, which was pretty interesting to see all these old folks dressed as Snoopy and Charlie. And Carolyn loved to sing the year we did Christmas carols and Jewish and other songs. She was just a star in the soprano section. We could always rely on her to come in on the right note. And so she was a wonderful addition. And that chorus, the room would be overflowing with Lantern Hill residents to come hear the choir sing. So that was one way she really shared her gifts with the Lantern Hill community. I'd also like to share something about our lunch group. It started out as 10 people, and some have moved away now. But one thing I learned about Carolyn in the beginning was, although she did frequently appear prim and proper and reserved and maybe even a little conservative, as we got to know each other better in the lunch group, Carolyn could be relied on to at some point say something hysterically funny that was also very scatological. And this was always a big surprise, but she always brought us some wonderful laughs. And Jim can tell you the men would be jealous of us that they and their group were eating at the same restaurant we were. They could always hear us laughing uproariously and having a wonderful time, and she was often part of why that was so. And so I was with Carolyn the night before she died, holding her hand and trying to listen to what she was struggling to say. And I can say, without a doubt, that all during that month, she went from diagnosis to death. all she thought about was Jim and her daughters and her grandchildren, and how much she had invested in the family, nurturing the family, trying to hold the family together, and how proud she was of everyone, how far they'd come, and her last words to me were, "There are so many things not attended to, for the family." She was thinking of you at the very end, and I think we will all cherish all the wonderful times and admire her strength and resilience and her practicality and her sense of beauty and her love of family. I'll miss her terribly, and we'll try to be there for Jim because he's a good pal. Thank you.
Thank you each, beloved. Thank you, Julia, for that final word in our service, but we hope not the final word or sharing. We hope that you will gather with us downstairs for a reception as we continue to remember Carolyn, to share the stories as a grandmother, the pride that she had for her grandchildren, the concern and worry for family and love that endured. We hope that you will continue to share the humor and the joy and the light too that she carried, the resilience and the wit and the strength. All of these gifts and so many more from her life across these 85 years, beloved, they endure. They endure. So as we close, let us rise and sing together one more time a song that Carolyn loved and Jim, hymn 1064. It's in the teal hymnal, Blue Boat Home.
Say
Would you take hands with one another for our closing benediction? These words come from Nancy Wood. Hold on to what is good, even if it is a handful of earth. Hold on to what you believe, even if it is a tree which stands by itself. Hold on to what you must do, even if it is a long way from here. Hold on to life, to memory, to love, even when it is easier letting go. Carolyn, we release you now to the energy of the great cosmos, but we hold on to the love that you gave us. And we pledge to live out that love in all the days that we are given. Amen.